Hello aspirants, looking at editorials and question bank for 21st November. The first editorial in the Hindu newspaper is Getting Real on Climate. So this is with respect to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, which conducted its 22nd COP, Conference of Parties in Marrakesh, which is in Morocco, capital of Morocco in Africa, just separated by European continent in Africa, North Africa. So this COP22 is successor to COP21, which took place last year in 2015 in Paris, and the Paris Climate Agreement was finalized out of it. So in this Marrakesh conference, now there was a demand to bring in more commitments from the developed world to ensure that climate funding is provided to developing countries, technology transfer is done so that developing countries also have capacity building so that they can put in clean technologies in place so that emissions can be reduced. So greenhouse gas emissions have to be reduced and global temperature rise has to be contained below 2 degrees Celsius. So there should not be more than 2 degrees Celsius rise by the end of this century, means by the end of 2100. That is the target of Paris Climate Agreement. Also an ambitious target set is to keep it below 1.5 degrees Celsius rise too. So this rise is as compared to pre-industrial levels, that how the global temperatures are rising since then. So keeping this rise to as low as possible, that is seen. So now presently in this Marrakesh conference also we saw that there were tensions about what would be the stand of US, because Donald Trump has now become the president of US. So there are fears that he may renege on the Paris Agreement. Renege means he would recede out, come out of the Paris Agreement to the commitments which US has already made under Barack Obama presidency to climate change, because US is also a large emitter. 1/4 of global cumulative fossil fuel emissions come from US. So then if this aspect would also be prominent, plus also the climate funding. So there is a demand and there is a provision under Paris Agreement that $100 billion have to be provided per year to help the developing countries, the poorest and the vulnerable countries in climate change. So tackle climate change through technology transfer, providing clean technology, capacity building. So India is also having a peculiar stand here. It has twin challenges which it faces, as the editorial says, because it has to go for a higher growth to fulfilling the aspirations of the large population which wants development of the country too. Plus we have to go on the growth path along with ensuring that global greenhouse gas emissions also remain low. Because when you go for development, you have industries set up, manufacturing units set up, even the infrastructure being developed, everything results in greenhouse gas emissions, carbon footprints. So this has to be tackled. So to have minimum carbon footprint, is it required that clean technologies are used. So this is possible only with funding and assistance from developed countries. So India's commitments are in the Paris Agreement too, the INDCs and the nationally determined contributions which we have finalized now. These talk of all these commitments which it has given dependent on funding and technology transfer. So that is clear. Also it says that with respect to India, it is the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases, but with respect to per capita emissions, it is quite low. So this is also there. So India always speaks of its per capita emissions, and historically it does not have a historical burden of its greenhouse gas emissions which it has done. But that is the case with developed countries. Developed countries have already undertaken so much of development and industries established that greenhouse emissions have already been emitted by them. So these emissions are the ones which are resulting in global temperatures rising now. So they have a larger responsibility to tackle this climate change, and developing countries have to act responsibly now and don't go on the same path which developed countries tread. So that is clean technology being used now. So this is there. Then another point which is put forth is that UNFCCC is going to hear from IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in 2018, that what would be the impact of additional warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius on the planet. So this is a study which they are undertaking. So a minimum rise of 2.9 degrees Celsius is forecasted by even UN Environment Program. So how would it affect the life on globe is to be understood now. So these are the points highlighted. You can can see here the COP21 last year in Paris. What were the targets? Keeping temperatures below 2 degrees Celsius, ambitiously even 1.5 degrees Celsius. All countries have to report regularly. So this is there. A transparency and accounting system is in place under Paris Agreement. Every 5 years, each country's contributions will be reviewed. So this is also there. Then 100 billion, as we spoke of, this will be the climate finance per year till 2025, which developed countries have to provide. So this is there. Then the Paris Agreement key points again highlighted here about financing and how the differentiated responsibilities there with developed countries. Then next is this, the contribution. The maximum contribution is by China, then US, third comes India. Cumulatively it is EU, but country wise it would be India and the other countries shown here. And with respect to per capita emissions, as you see, India comes much later. Then the next editorial is rising dollar, falling rupee. So this is regarding Donald Trump being elected as the US President of India, and this is seeing dollar rising. So dollar is appreciating as against euro, European currency, Union currency, as well as Indian currency rupee. So it was 66.2 a dollar. Rupee 66.2 a dollar, but now it has been pushed past even rupee 68 a dollar. So this appreciation of dollar is seen because there are expectations that the economic policies of Donald Trump, as he had promised, would result in growth and inflation in the economy. So inflation is not always bad. Inflation means sustained general increase in price levels. So this is good for the economy actually, but high levels of inflation can prove to be counterproductive, because if inflation, a sustained price level increase takes place, that spurs in the economy and growth and development of the economy. People are interested in investing, gaining profits, expectations of higher profits in the future. So that is inflation. So Indian inflation targeting also, you should know, is decided that it would be targeted to keep it at 4%, and plus minus 2% is the band. So it can go maximum up to 6% and minimum to 2%. So that is inflation targeting in India too, as recommended by the Urjit Patel committee which was set up. Presently Urjit Patel is also the governor of RBI. So this is the expectation in US. Even presently the Monetary Policy Committee, which comprises of members from both RBI and the government. So this is a 6-member body which has been planned to be set up from this financial year only. Presently it has had its first meeting to decide what would be the rate. Means basically the repo and reverse repo rates. Reverse repo rate is fixed as per repo rate. It will lie 1 percentage point below repo rate. So repo rate will be fixed based on the decision taken by this Monetary Policy Committee. Means both RBI and government working together. So this is also as per the recommendations of Urjit Patel committee. So this meeting is also planned for December 7. So how do we go ahead? Looking at the present scenario where we are seeing dollar appreciating and also the depreciation of Indian rupee, which we are seeing presently with respect to dollar, plus also the demonetization drive which we see, will result into increase in liquidity in the banks. So if liquidity in banks increase, then interest rates would fall. So if interest rates, lending rates would fall, then the foreign investors would not be keen on investing in India. That interest would also reduce because they are interested in investing, because the interest rate arbitrage means higher interest rates which they gain by putting in money in India is what attracts them to India. So that is also seen. Plus, as we saw, a higher expectation of growth in US itself is seeing many foreign investors taking out money from emerging economies and entering and taking them back to US. So all this will have its effect on emerging countries as well as developing countries as well as India. So that has to be taken into consideration. So that has been put forth here. So this is there, and Donald Trump, it says that some predict that even with Donald Trump, US GDP growth would accelerate appreciably in 2017 because he has plans to reduce taxation rates. So tax cuts which would be brought in, deregulation, infrastructure development which he has promised to bring in USA will spur the economic growth up there. and also he has majority. The Republican Party to which he belongs has majority in both the Senate and the House of Representatives, that lower and upper house. Upper house is Senate and lower house is House of Representatives. Together they are called Congress. The way we have Parliament comprising of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, in USA it is Congress comprising of House of Representatives and Senate, lower house and upper house respectively. So there in both these houses Republican Party has majority. President, the executive is also from Republican Party. So if any policy is decided, it would be smooth sailing. So that's why the fears of what Donald Trump would go ahead and what would be his policies, which can be easily implemented in present political scenario, bring in fear in the world with respect to economy also, and above we saw with respect to climate change as well. So that is put forth. Next we look at the question bank. So the question which we have selected for today is on Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. So we saw again the lead article today, and the one article on perspective page is again regarding Donald Trump. So I'm completely ignoring them. One article which is of significance and a question can be framed out of which is this: the framework regarding fiscal responsibility and discipline as outlined by the previous version of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act needs to get urgently revived and fine-tuned, taking into account the ongoing changes in global and domestic economic and financial order. Elucidate. So this is the question. The article starts off with some positive policies which have been brought in by the government in the economic domain. You may add it in this answer. It may or may not, it may actually not be relevant, but then in some other answer you can fruitfully use it. So these points which are put forth are the recent initiatives in the right direction in the economic domain. One is e-auctioning of natural resources, rule-based framework for Indian monetary policy, which I just spoke of, Monetary Policy Committee, insolvency and bankruptcy code, which has been brought in by the government, GST, goods and services tax, restraint on unproductive spending, plugging of subsidy leakages through direct benefit transfer, higher devolution of revenue to states and local self-governments. So financial devolution has also increased. Greater autonomy to states for spending on development goals. So these are some points listed. You may use in any answer you want, but in this answer it may not be so relevant. Then coming to the actual question, so it talks of FRBM, Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. So this act was introduced in India in 2000. It was enacted, passed by the parliament and became an act in 2003. This is institutionalized fiscal discipline. So government, fiscal responsibility and budget management. In budget, a budget can be surplus or deficit. So generally we see in India it is always a deficit budget which is passed. So this deficit which is there has to be sustainable. So how to manage that? To bring in fiscal discipline in the government, an institutionalized setup should be there. So that was this act. FRBM Act institutionalized fiscal discipline by seeking to eliminate revenue deficit completely by 2008, from 2003 to 2008, and bringing down fiscal deficit to manageable 3% of GDP by financial year 2008. So this was the plan. In 2003, fiscal deficit was 5.7%. Now what is fiscal deficit and what is revenue deficit? I'll come to that too. First looking at FRBM Act 2. So we were able to achieve these targets. FRBM Act was running on track, but then in 2008 we saw the global financial crisis being felt strongly, and that was the time when even the foreign investors took away their funds from India. So there was a complete flow of money out of India, which resulted in the economy entering into a gloom. And in that case, when private investment goes low, there is a need for government to step in and increase spending. So government spending increased. When government spending increases, of course there will be a deficit. So then these targets went haywire. Also these targets were temporarily suspended and finally even abandoned too. So now there is a need for a fresh FRBM Act 2. So that is what the article is talking about. So this is FRBM Act, as you see. So it made obligatory for the government to reduce revenue deficit and fiscal deficit. So revenue deficit, it was a yearly reduction, 0.5%. So eventually it will go to 0 in 2008-9. And fiscal deficit also reduced by 0.3%. So then it would come down to 3%. So it was able to achieve these. But see, you can see the fiscal deficit target graph too. This is 2005-6, 4.1%, 6-7, 7-8. So it had gone below 3% also by 2007-8, as target was 3%. But then in 8-9, then it drastically shot up because of government spending in response to global financial crisis. So this you see, then it has been slowly going down. So that what we expect now in 2014-15 to it was 4%. So 15-16, this is an estimated value. So we need to bring down fiscal deficit as well. So what is revenue deficit and fiscal deficit? Now we'll look at that. So first understand budgeting. So in budget there are two sides. One is receipts and the other is expenditure. So budget receipts. Receipts are also of two types again. Revenue receipts and capital receipts. Again expenditure will be of two types. So budget, revenue and expenditure, again revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. What is the difference between this revenue and capital? Revenue means tax revenue, non-tax revenue which the government gets in, and capital receipts are large, on a larger basis, large amounts. So that is recovery of loans, disinvestments which it does, borrowings, provident fund amounts. So these are large components. So these are capital receipts on a larger scale, long-term basis. So these are regular revenue receipts which the government receives. So this again you can see direct tax, indirect tax, and non-tax receipts can be anything: interest receipts, profit dividends, fines or fees, whichever they gain. So all these are non-tax receipts. Then coming to expenditure side, so revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. So revenue expenditure can be payment of interest, salaries. So these are recurrent basis, regularly salaries have to be paid, education, health services, defense services, all these payments which are done, these are called revenue expenditure. And capital expenditure are larger, on a larger scale again. So these are construction of roads, bridges, buildings, payments, purchases of land, machinery, investment in shares, repayment of loans on a larger basis. So that is coming under capital expenditure. So these are the two sides. Now talking of deficit, the two deficits which FRBM spoke of was fiscal deficit and revenue deficit. So revenue deficit is difference between revenue expenditure and revenue receipts. So if expenditure is more than receipts, then only it will be a deficit. So that is revenue deficit, otherwise it would be a surplus, and if both are same, then it is a balance, no deficit or surplus. So that's a balanced budget. So generally we see revenue deficit. And what is fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit is difference between the total budget expenditure and total budget receipts excluding borrowings, means complete total expenditure minus receipts excluding the borrowings. So the borrowings which are there, capital receipts. So because there will be a deficit, that will be taken care of, that gap will be filled with borrowings majorly. So these borrowings are excluded. So that shows the fiscal deficit, that how much money the government has to borrow. So that is called fiscal deficit. So you can see the calculation how it is done is also shown here. So it's a broad or a wide concept. And there's another term called primary deficit. This is a third term. So this is the difference between fiscal deficit and interest payments by government. So even interest payment is deducted. So this is fiscal deficit minus interest payment. So this is called the primary deficit. Here borrowings are deducted, and plus even when interest payments are deducted, then it is called primary deficit. So this is the case. So interest payments means when you have taken loans, borrowings, you have to pay interest also regularly. So that aspect is deducted. Now implications of fiscal deficit. What will happen because of fiscal deficit? One is debt trap, because fiscal deficit indicates the total borrowings requirements of the government. So borrowings not only involve repayment of principal amount but also require payment of interest. So this will result in a debt trap, because you keep on, if your borrowings keep on increasing, interest to be paid keep on increasing, the principal amount also has to be repaid. So government can fall in a debt trap, and this borrowings can be external borrowings or internal borrowings too. So that is also there. Then if it is external borrowing, it results in foreign dependency and it hampers future growth. When borrowings are very high, then future governments will also face the consequences of high borrowings of the former government. So all these aspects are there, and government may also, to meet this fiscal deficit, print new currency. So if more currency comes in the economy, it will result in inflation. So that's why fiscal deficit should be under control. That is the significance of FRBM Act. Then, so recent developments that we see is in 2016 budget speech, Finance Minister has spoken of instituting a committee to review the contours of the FRBM Act in light of current domestic and global dynamics. So this is taken into consideration. A committee is planned to be set up to look into this. It has already been set up actually. So now what should the committee recommend? Some points are put forth by the article, so we'll discuss them. First, it speaks about what should be the target, like fiscal deficit target. Should it be point based or range based? So some say that there should be a point based target, means fiscal deficit, like last act of 2003, it was point based. 3% should be fiscal deficit target, and range based would be like how we spoke of inflation. If target is 4% and a range is given plus minus 2%. So same way for fiscal deficit too, a target being set up 3% and plus minus something, a band also allowed. So that is a discussion whether it should be point based or range based. The writer here, author, says that point target is much more beneficial because it clearly infuses fiscal discipline and limits the room for government maneuvers and provides an unambiguous signal to bond markets that what would be the range of the fiscal deficit. So range, that is why it would be clearly give an indication what would be the fiscal deficit. So band would bring in ambiguity. So that is the point. Next on discussion is on determining the appropriate fiscal deficit targets, that how much should be the fiscal deficit set up, what should be this target. Last time it was 3%, what should it be this time too? So it again says that 3% headline fiscal deficit target for all center and each state would be good enough. Then next point it discusses is rules that serve as guiding principles. So there should be binding spending rules along with a medium term debt range, that how much the debt could be taken. So the government should be able to sustain its debt servicing. Debt servicing means repayment of interest or part of the debt. So that is called debt serving. Serving the debt means repaying. Even the interest repaid or a part of the debt repaid is debt serving. So this it says is a guiding principle as under Maastricht Treaty 2, which is the treaty under which EU has been formed, that the debt sustainability rule should be put in place. So the ceiling on government debt should be 60% of GDP. That can be adopted for the next 3 years with indicators of sustainable debt serving. So this is how even it happens in EU under the Maastricht Treaty. So India can also accept these guidelines. Then it also says a preference for capital spending in both agricultural and manufacturing should receive budgetary enunciation. So budget should provide capital spending in these two sectors to promote growth here. So there should be clear guidelines about how spending should be done and where it should be spent. So that is there. And last point it speaks of is there needs to be an independent reviewer, a fiscal council, which will review oversee how the rules are put into effect and recommend even the future course of action. So these are some of the suggestions given. Also eventually lastly it speaks about twin deficit vulnerability. So what is this twin deficit? Now UPSC has this tendency that it asks you questions on terms in economy and it says these terms are generally heard in news. What do they mean? So twin deficit has already been asked by UPSC in prelims a few years ago. So what is twin deficit? Is deficit on two counts. Means country facing fiscal deficit as well as current account deficit is said to be having twin deficit. So fiscal deficit we have already discussed above. Now we'll talk about what is current account deficits too. So what we have is balance of payment. So balance of payment has two accounts, current account and capital account. So current account, the way current and capital we discussed there too. So current account means flow on transactions which take place from the nation to the outside world with respect to goods and services, means generally trade which we see. And capital account is, so this is on a smaller scale and takes place regularly, and capital account is on a larger scale and it takes place one-off. So these are transactions like changes in stock magnitude. So this is like transactions with respect to debts. So debts being taken or repaid or transfer of ownership. So that will go into capital account. So current account deficit and capital account deficit. So these can be there. So twin deficit is both fiscal deficit and current account deficit, which we see in India. So it is having twin deficit vulnerability. So fiscal responsibility will bring in this, tackling this twin deficit vulnerability to effectively. So that is highlighted. Plus it will boost the government spending control, and also greenfield investments. Greenfield investment, again a term. So greenfield investment means investments in fresh projects. Brownfield investments means investments in projects which are already in place. So like an airport which is already there, and then you have to improvise it. So that is called a brownfield investment. So you are putting in, investing in something which is already there. And greenfield means something which you are starting from scratch. So there is nothing green and brown here. It is not related to agriculture or environment, but it is a fresh project put in. Fresh money, something starting from scratch. So that is called greenfield investment. So that is also highlighted, that it can transform India's fiscal architecture and create enablers for germination of greenfield investment appetite. So this is the benefit of Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act Part 2, which has to come in now. So this finally it says that it will enhance the country's credibility as well. So these are the points. So you can look at the contents which are provided here. This is again current account deficit explained here. So it is the deficit between receipts on account of trade and invisibles and payment on account of trades and invisibles. So balance of payment, it's part of balance of payment. So this is receipts on trade and invisibles. So trade means actually trade in goods, and invisible here means trade in services. So services are invisible. So goods and services actually it means. So deficit in receipts and expenditures. So our expenditure is more means and receipts are less. So that is why means imports are more and exports are less. So that is current account deficit. So this twin deficit is also mentioned here, current account deficit with fiscal deficit. So you can download the PDF also for today from the website. Also one more thing highlighted here is causes of current account deficit. So there are some structural causes and cyclical causes too. So structural causes may be underinvestment, low productivity, persistently high relative inflation, inadequate R&D innovation. So when we are not having sufficient development structural aspects in place, then we have to depend on imports. So emergence of lower cost competition. And some cyclical reasons for current account deficit can be overvalued exchange rate, boom in domestic demand. So there are needs for more imports, recession in some key export markets, slump in global prices of exports. So when imports are much cheaper, increased demand for imported technology. So all these result in current account deficit. So this is it for today. Thank you so much.